Okay, today we are talking to Monica. Monica, tell us something. You have been through sexual abuse and you've been healing, and we just want to hear your story today.
Hi. Well, 37 years later, I've healed from what was sexual molestation and abuse at the age of 11. That started on a Sunday Easter day when you least expect someone you truly trust to start touching you and saying, that's just the way the world is and how it's supposed to be, and continue on from there for many, many years.
Okay, and how did you deal with it? How did you make sense of it? Because you were only 11.
I trusted the adult, and so therefore thought it was normal, although I did have a feeling that it wasn't right, and my brain didn't like it, but I couldn't quite understand what was happening.
And so how did you start to make sense out of it? And did you go to anybody for help?
I couldn't go to anybody for help because, again, when you trust an adult that's telling you, you can't go to anybody because if you do, I'm going to tell them you started it, you wanted it, this was all your fault. So I lived many years thinking it was my fault.
And so
because that's what we do as children, we believe adults.
Okay. So the perpetrator told you those things.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone right now that's 11 or that's a young person and they're going through the same thing?
Don't be afraid to tell anybody because it is not your fault.
Okay, so how long did it take for you to tell somebody?
Until I was 36.
36. So you held all that in all that time?
Yep, I put it in the back of my brain and I just went into what they call a trauma response, which just stored it away, didn't think of it, went through counseling. People asked me about a counselor and people would ask me about my childhood. My childhood was great. I would remember all the good things. Never once remembered all those bad things.
Wow.
Until I was about 36. And so backing up a little, the guy that did molest me was a worker, one of my parents' employees, who his wife kicked him out after getting into a fight. And he started living with us. When I was 36, my cousin got kicked out of his house, a distant cousin, and he came and he had lived here with me. And seeing my young daughter at the age of 11, I started having nightmares and waking up in the middle of the night, freaking out, not understanding why. And that's how slowly things started coming out. And that's how I kind of figured it and pieced it all together.
Okay. Now tell me, earlier you said that it wasn't your fault and someone's going through it now, it's not their fault. Can you help them understand why it's not their fault?
Because there's nothing we do that we could possibly do that will, especially at a young age, make an adult do stuff to us that we're not asking for. And sometimes at a young age, we just don't know how to say no or get out of it and get away from it. Therefore, making us think it's our fault is a manipulative way to keep us quiet.
Okay.
So it really is not our fault. There's nothing I did wrong besides going for a walk that day alone with this man.
So when did you realize that it was not your fault?
Actually, I went back to Portugal and I found him.
Okay.
And one of the first words he said to me was, I knew you would come back for me one day because I knew you really loved me. And that's when I realized he was just mentally ill and that none of this had ever been my fault. And I lived with this all these years thinking it was my fault. That's when it clicked. Years of therapy after too.
And how did that interaction go when you saw him again face to face?
I looked at a very broken person, very mentally ill person. Small. I always remembered him to be a big, muscular, strong man. Small, like life hit him hard. I was a little scared at first, and I was nervous. Of course, I was shaking. But then once we started getting talking, I wanted answers. I hated Easter, and I never understood why. And he was the one that clarified it. There was a lot of other things he did clarify, of like events and reasons why I don't like certain things and stuff. We came to figure out that was where that came from. And at the end, before I left, I really felt bad. I felt pity for him. Like, he still tried to get my contact, my phone number. Well, obviously I lived here, but he was trying to get my phone number to stay in touch. And I just gave him a hug and I said, I forgive you for me and for what you've done, even though you don't even realize what you've done, and it's okay. But no, this is the last time you'll ever see me. And I walked away.
So, was it easy to forgive him, or was that just that spot, that time that came to, and you had dealt with it and gone to therapy and you were just ready to let it go?
Oh, I hadn't gone to therapy at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Not yet. I just one day woke up after all those nightmares and said, I have to go to Portugal. I have to fix this. It was easy to forgive because I knew life hadn't been easy for him. I could see, and like some of the things he said, his own daughter ended up getting raped and murdered. He had gotten beaten up by his children a lot. And in fact, he died 3 years ago in a cornfield, and he was found like 15 days later, died by himself. So, I know a lot of people out there haven't had justice for their molesters, but just know God does. God does bring them justice.
Okay. So,
and I think I looked at him and I could tell, I could see that. And I don't think any jail time would have done the justice it did just by living.
So you went to Portugal, you saw him, you came back, and then what?
I came back, and that's when I kind of went there and I wasn't prepared. So when I came back, I ended up going to an emergency counseling, because then the nightmares got even worse. That now he was coming after my daughter. So my husband brought me in to see a counselor, a therapist, I think like the same day, the same afternoon. And then that's how I started talking about it and working from there.
So there's someone that's going through something similar. How did it work for you? Because I'm sure for everybody it's different in some way, but for you, what was the process or the steps, those aha moments that just helped you heal?
Talking about it. Talking to a lot of other people that I know. I put it out there once. There was something on Facebook that came through, something about, being sexually abused. And I ended up sharing that on Facebook. And then from there, a lot of people started, sending me messages and just talking about it, just keep talking about it.
What else would you share with someone that's listening and they are a perpetrator?
Seek help, because studies have shown that most people that do sexually molest other people or abuse other people have been abused themselves. There are two groups. One that chooses to sit back and say, I'm the victim, so because I'm the victim, so does everybody else have to suffer. And there's the other group that survives and tries to heal from it and does everything they possibly can not to do that to anybody.
Good to know. Now, you're listening, someone's listening, they're a parent. What do parents need to know, or caregivers or grandparents, to keep their kids or grandkids safe?
Don't trust anybody around your children. Not even the people that you think are safe are usually. Most people get sexually abused by people they trust.
And that means not just the child, but that means the parent, right?
The parent, yes.
Okay. So when did your nightmares start to go away?
So when I was 36 and my cousin was living here, like it was a year or two after he'd been living here. And I've always protected my children, not even sometimes understanding why, never let them sleep over anybody's house. While my cousin was here, I was always around with them. They were never allowed to be around him by himself. So I was already doing things without even realizing. But then once the nightmare started was when I really started like freaking out and understanding what was happening.
Now you say that you kept all this in the back of your mind and you just were oblivious to it for so long. Can you remind us again of how it came up, and then what was the process to start bringing all the memories back?
The process was nightmares because I got triggered by my cousin living here was a trigger. Went to go find my molester, did talk to him, and then did therapy.
Okay. So how long was the therapy?
On and off for probably, 6, 7 years.
Okay. Do you recommend therapy?
Absolutely.
Okay. What did that therapy help you do that you could not have done without it?
They make a lot of sense out of things that sometimes our brains can't wrap themselves around. They'll ask certain questions. My therapist was very challenged with the fact that I still don't remember everything that happened. I still get little triggers here and there that makes me uncomfortable, but I don't know why. So that kind of was a challenge for her, but I just settled at letting it be, because obviously if it's not coming out, it's because it's not meant to come out just yet.
All right. So let's say
But it gave me tools to prepare for anxiety. Because of it, I've had severe anxiety, definitely like fear of strangers and fear of people around my children. So yeah, I got a lot of fears and stuff from it.
Okay.
So it prepared me to deal with all that, so I wouldn't be so anxious and so scared.
Okay. So if someone's looking for a therapist, is there anything you recommend they look for?
Someone who specializes in trauma, in mental trauma.
Now, so after, you went through this experience starting at 11, and then eventually you started, to date and to find people that you did like. Was it difficult? And then you ended up getting married? I mean, how did all that work?
So when I became a little bit older, and my parents would come home and say, even from school and stuff, and say, I saw so-and-so talking to you, you guys dating. Well, my guy that was abusing me would hear that. And then once my parents weren't with me or whatever, I would get hit and beat. And so not only did I get sexually abused, I got physically abused, and I got verbally abused.
I'm sorry.
And so I would be more fearful. I didn't want to really date anybody. Or when I was 18, I finally had it. And my friend's father was a police officer. So I had asked, I was scared to go tell anybody, but I figured it's my friend's father. If anything, he'll tell me what to do and how to help. And so I went to his house. I was 18, and then decided to drink a 750 liter of vodka so I could build up the guts to tell him.
Yeah.
Well, he gave me more alcohol, and then he ended up raping me.
Oh, that is.
So, yeah, and then dropped me off at school, pretty much in an alcoholic coma. I was throwing up everywhere. And I don't remember much of the rape besides just screaming, please stop, get off of me. But then I blacked out after that. Then woke up being thrown out of the car near the school. And then the security guards came outside and got me. And I went to the principal's office, and I was punished for I don't know how many months. And it was this big whole thing. So then I got really, because I was obviously a disgrace to my parents. How could I do that? I was embarrassment to them. So I went to go throw myself off a cliff, because what was the point of living? I was just no good. And something of force held me back. I had a hand on my shoulder, but it was not a hand. It was nobody there that pushed me back. So obviously I ended up not jumping because I'm here.
Yeah.
I walked away, went home. The guy that was sexually abusing me came up to me and came to give me a hug, and I slammed him up against the wall, and I said he was never touching me again. And then we ended up moving. My parents got divorced, and we ended up moving away to the city. This was all still in Portugal. And put it in the back of my head and lived a normal life. Really lived a normal life, started, dating like normal. It affected my first marriage for sure. Second marriage, it affected it terribly, but also because he has his own set of problems going on. So we were kind of triggers for each other, but with healing and counseling and time, we've actually worked it out. We're really okay now, but it caused a lot of problems. I just didn't know why.
Okay. Man, so you're hitting a lot of different things that people are going through. So is it, as you talk to other people that have been abused, are these things that you're talking about sexual abuse connected with physical abuse, and then you're going to someone else to find help, then they abuse you, and then you turn to suicide? Is that a common theme?
No, I don't think so.
So you're saying that, as far as you know, that what you experienced, that chain of events isn't always the case for everybody. So does...
Not that much, like not all that combined together. Although when you are sexually either abused, molested, or whatever's happening, you become a target. You become weak. So predators out there can sense that weakness. So it's not unusual for someone else to try. But I think that whole entire combination that quickly doesn't really happen. But yeah, suicide is a huge one though with it, because you just feel worthless, you feel trapped, you don't know how to get out of it.
Okay, so someone's watching this and they're experiencing this type of abuse or some type of abuse, and they're thinking of suicide. What would you say to them?
Walk away and take charge. They've had the upper hand on them this whole time. It's now time that whoever it is can get the upper hand on them. It's really not that hard. It feels very hard. It feels very scary. But once you do it, you'll be like, wow, okay, I should have done that years ago.
Okay, good insight. Now, you were 18 and you went to tell this police officer what was happening, and he turned around and raped you. So someone's getting ready to tell somebody. Who should they tell?
That's a really hard one, because obviously, I mean, apparently I picked the wrong people, the wrong person to try to tell. I don't think any of my friends knew anything. You just have to find someone you trust, and someone who you know will be there for you. It's not an easy thing to say. It's not an easy thing to just come out and say from it when you're living it. Once you're healed, now I don't care. I'll tell anybody. But when you're living it, it's not easy. It's embarrassing. You feel ashamed of what's happening. A lot of people, 90% of the people have always questioned me, why didn't you tell someone? That's like their first instinct. Again, being this young and trusting adults, because that's what we do. We trust older people, adults. And if they're telling us not to tell anybody, that's what we're believing. Now I look back and I was like, wow, okay. But at the time, that's what you believe. Yeah, you obey, you listen.
Now I want to ask another question. So your first marriage, it was rocky because of this background. Your second marriage, you worked through it. So someone's dating somebody, they're married, and they're dealing with it, or their partner, their spouse is dealing with it. What are your words of wisdom?
A lot of times a husband or a boyfriend will either talk a certain way or try to hug you a certain way or try to touch you a certain way. And they may not, whoever's, has been molested or abused are not going to like it. Mine was in the middle of the night sneaking into my bed. I would wake up with someone right behind me and trying to feel me and stuff. So no man was able to ever do that to me until obviously now I don't care. But before, that was a huge trigger. It's communication and openness and speaking, and, just got to explain to the spouse what they or the boyfriend what they don't like. And hopefully the other person will understand and try to avoid doing it. But with healing, there's hope. With healing, nothing bothers me now.
Great to hear.
All with healing.
So tell me, how is life now? You've healed. That was 37 years ago. You had a rocky road to find the healing. You said it happened at 36 when the healing started. Okay, so that's 25 years later. So 36. So you've gone through a number of years now. What's life like now that you've healed?
Grateful that it all happened.
You're grateful?
And yeah, I wouldn't change a thing if I could go back.
Okay, why you say that? Because someone's listening, they're thinking, man, you're crazy.
No, it sounds crazy. I know it does, but it made me who I am.
Okay.
The ability to be as I was and again, on our survivors group, there is also two groups. The survivors that just stand up and say, you know what, screw you, world, I'm going to be me and I'm going to heal. Or the other ones that remain victims and poor me, poor me. I definitely went into the survivor's mode of, you know what, I'm just going to heal. But with that comes a lot of compassion and a lot of connection to people. I connect a lot with people through my job and everything. But we also feel this way of wanting to help people because we never got helped. We never had help. We never had someone who saved us. So we end up trying to save the world.
Okay.
That's who I am. I wouldn't change a thing. And the fact that I've protected my children and they're okay in life. And I chose to stay home with them because I wouldn't put them in daycare. It just all worked out for the best.
Okay, cool. So let's try to tie this off. So someone is going through this. You're telling us that there's two roads they can take. One is the victim, one is the empowered survivor. So how do they take the next step to become that empowered survivor?
It's a personal choice. You just have to wake up and every morning say, I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor. I'm going to fight.
And what helped you do that?
My kids, the life I have, my job.
So you said you're on a cliff, you're going to jump. Why do you think you felt an unseen hand holding you back?
Because it wasn't meant for me to. We're not meant to commit suicide. At the moment, we totally think that we're doing what we're doing is the best. It's the unselfish thing to do. That way we're out of this world. We're out of people's ways. We're not going to be like in my case, I wasn't going to be an embarrassment to the church, to my parents, to my friends. So you think that's the best way out, but it truly isn't. And what seems today that it's not worth living. I mean, I'm walking proof of that. 3 children, great job, I wouldn't say great job. It was a job I love and, the life I have.
Okay.
So I think I obviously know God was there with me and God said, I have bigger plans for you, my friend, back up.
Okay, so that means their parents, they don't have parents. They don't have someone to talk to. They have no one to lean on. They don't really have someone they trust. They are super vulnerable. And at the end of the day, they feel like they have nobody. But you're telling me that you had an unseen hand on your shoulder. That means above everything and in spite of everything, you still have God.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And he's been with me the whole entire time. I mean, he's shown me things that probably even if I said half of them, people would be like, yeah, you're probably crazy. No, he's been with me all along. Although I don't even half the times go to church, nothing. He's never once abandoned me.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you sharing. I know it's not easy. I know someone's just taken positivity and courage from your story. Is there any last word that you want to have as you share?
Be strong. There's way better. Once you're healed, it's the freest feeling in the world. If I could do it, anybody else can as well. There is hope.